So I think it's time for an update from out here at the shooting area. I've made progress. Basically, to recap where we're at, the Noreen gun, the big fiberglass gun, I haven't even touched, really. I mean, other than the function test and make sure that the break cleared. I think I put 5 rounds through it metal to metal. And one of those was a group, but I did it from outside. So I just did it to put the scope, and it grouped out an 1.5 inches. Now it's in the process, it's been in the process of being bedded. And it ended up, it's sucking up a lot of glass. Basically, I think I showed some of the bedding and it's still not filled up. So I need to take the time to turn around and rebed that one to bring it up to the top. I might shoot it first. It's bedded about halfway up around the action. So the screen door, I'm calling it a success, but only at low velocity. That's the 15 pound, 16.2 I think. I can easily make it 15. But I'm stuck. The way I'm setting these up is I'm shooting them free recoil and catching. I'm going to turn this fan off. I don't know if you can hear it, but I've been shooting and this is it's humming in my ear pretty loud. I'll just put it down there. So, long story short, the screen door is a success, I guess, mainly because even at 2200, I gotta get my notes over here where they go instead of, I brought some over here to change. I'll go through all these in a minute. The reason I call the screen door as a success is that even at 2200, it completely violates a 300 Win Mag. It shoots nice tight groups at 2150, 2160, 2200. I just started playing with it. Now the problem is that the ES is 70 feet per second. You got a slow bullet, which exhibits good wind drift, but 70 feet per second is unacceptable at long range. So we've got a gun that's going to show 8 inches of vertical automatically because of its bad extreme spread. But again, these are new to me. So far we've worked with one kind of powder and one kind of bullet. So, screen door, Noreen fiberglass set aside. My 2-piece billet was working beautifully, showing great promise. I don't remember if I taped groups or not, but I've got groups out of that until I blew the brake apart. The brake came in pieces. So I had to order, that's sitting aside. So now I've been working on this stupid holy 5-piece. Used to have a bunch of holes in here. I'm getting them covered up now. Now it's still muckied up glass. I'm riding it on a piece of rubber with a piece of plastic under it. And I'll explain this little farly. I'm shooting off a rolled up coat. Long story short, I started shooting this thing. Here's the problem with this gun. It had been rocking and rolling, shooting frowning faces from day one. Had the big keel on it, stood up high, tracked nice, but it rocked back and forth. Now you can see there in the mirror, in the window, that it's, I'm running it with this 5-inch wide keel. Now this is all, oh man, I'm feeling that this is actually something shaking here. That might be some of the problems I had late in the shoot. You can't tell it, but it's almost dark outside. And I've been shooting since, I don't know, 9 o'clock this morning. Been running this thing through the paces. The big question with this gun has been, can I get rid of that rocking and rolling? Is it because the action's mounted too high? Is it wagging in here? Hard to know. So I re-inletted it. I moved the action forward over 1 inch. You can see how kludgy this looks in here. Getting away from this wimpy pistol grip to decide if it's wagging or if it's rocking. And I put the big wide forend on. I haven't glued anything yet. Now there's been some glue testing, but right now that fore end is just flipped over upside down, Delrin rails, and just bolted together. Now a couple of the things that I have to do to it coming down the road is, it's bolted together with through screws, and it's bolted together with little short through screws and big long through screws that haven't been inletted yet. And there's too much weight on them, and they're doing this. That whole assembly up there is bending and shaking a little bit. But practical usage indicates that I've got to go out and test this thing for viability. I've got to, you know, functional. I have to go test it for functionality, because the problem is if I get too wrapped up and go too far without checking function. So bottom line is I'm checking function with it bolted together and just seeing if we can get rid of that side to side. And I think we have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn over and start showing you some groups, because we've been firing this. Well, first I'm going to show you how I ended up firing this. It's I've been fighting it. I put it on a rest, a front and a rear rest, and I proved that I could control the rock. So then I made up a rolled up coat assembly here, where this is a stack of. Now when I say rolled up, I don't mean that you can't just slobber this stuff up. I just took welding cloths and stuff and I rolled everything up, tight bed rolls. I'm talking stuff you can do out in the field, camping rolls. There's some sandbags right here that you can see, and you might say I'm cheating, but I'm not. This is to set my pad on. This is my notepad that I write notes on, and I just pulled it out of here so that you can see my hand going in. My hand is all dinged up. You can't see it. If I bruised, my knuckle would be swollen and bruised. I don't bruise. So it's just chipped and chipped about 9 times, and it hurts like a bugger. It's been slapped so many times because this drops down so low, I can barely. When I start free recoiling this thing, you can't see this, but it comes back. It cut my arm open, coming back into here. It banged me up. It comes back really hard. And the problem is, I'm halfway convinced that if I ride it, I steer it. This thing is humiliating me. I love it. I love every bit about it, because I can shoot anything. I don't have a problem. I get a hole going and I get 2 in the hole and I just drop the last one back in, and it doesn't even make me nervous, you know, on my setup. Then for some reason 5-shot groups are different. I get 4 down and that 5th one starts to, but that's neither here nor there. At this point I'm just testing, and I'm playing with the bag way out the window. I'm playing with balance here. I'm playing with balance in the middle. I'm playing with balance way here. This has got a long riding surface. And my bag, and in the back here, I just moved this thing back and forth to slide. I ended up having to do a Farley because I convinced myself that I could, the gun is bucking so hard that I was getting some vertical. Well, I'll show you that with the groups here in just a minute. But suffice it to say that I ended up at the end of the day, I was starting to get excited because and then I shot my brake cam loose, and I left the rag on the barrel. The only way I can shoot with just one gun is I've got a rag over there in the, well, it's right here actually. I'll just show you how you do it. You take it, this thing is soaking wet, it's going to drip if I don't flip it. Because it's been hanging that way. You fold it once, you fold it twice, and you make a snake out of it, and now you go out and you lay that on the barrel. And then you run the fan over it, and the latent heat of fission or something goes to work, and I just call it evaporative swamp cooling. Anyway, it cools the barrel. I can load, shoot, load, shoot, and load, shoot. Because I was running 3 guns, took one out, was running 2 guns, broke one, and I'm down to 1 gun, unless I want to start throwing the Noreen in. So I'm shooting this thing by cooling the barrel. One of the groups up here, I left the bag on the barrel. I left the towel on there, and I'm almost convinced that's when the muzzle brake that's when I caught the loose muzzle brake. There's a couple of groups that are, but it's basically what's happening is I'm trying different things, and right now the reason I'm getting beat up so bad is because I put this on here because I was afraid I was rolling and collapsing. I had to reset these bags, and I just wasn't convinced I could get them solid enough to stay in place during the recoil cycle. So I put this rear entry Farley on here, which is 2 inches wide. It fits everything, even though it's still, you know, in prototype mode. And I think I've got it sliding pretty good. The gun's tracking pretty good. It pops completely out. This thing falls out. I've lost 2 of them. I had to cut some more. Anyway, that's a long story. I've been modifying these all through the day because I kept, this thing just pops right up off the bags. But the idea is I want the gun to be tractable enough to shoot a shot or 3 off a rolled up coat. Now the big problem is these things are so violent that if you shoot at an elk or something, you better hope he doesn't go very fast because it takes a while to get back down onto your roll. It throws the coats apart. But that aside, I tried different holds. I tried holding on over the top with my thumb over the top, and I was convinced myself I've been throwing the ubiquitous one flyer. I feel like it's 20 years ago. 20 years ago I used to fight with one flyer. And I marked brass, and I didn't even mark brass today, but I still am getting this one flyer. I think it's because I'm bouncing off my own body. Because it's second and third, I'll go boom, out, back in, or boom, boom, and then throw. I don't know. It's just so fascinating. As I said, humiliating because that's what's happening. I'll show you the targets here in a minute. But I put a big bandage around here instead of putting a bandage in my hand because it quit bleeding. But there's 5 layers of bandages on here, and I went and ground the end of it off because this thing was beating me so bad. But I ended up doing a thing where I would come in underneath like this and wrap my finger up into this. I measured it. It's almost a 4-pound trigger, and it's got a long gritty pull. And it's got a wall at the back. So that's all of my jewels and all of my, well, I've got all the, you know, Flavios and Bixes and whatever. Some of them have a hole at the back, some of them don't. I think it's important that a trigger have a hole at the back. It's got to trip and then have nice and loose. Otherwise your finger will trip and it'll follow it and it'll steer the gun. These are all things we do on little guns. Now this thing just steers, it bounces off every bone in my body. I think sometimes it bounces off the back of my head. It bounces off knuckles and arms and cut my arm open, slamming it back. The hard part with this is getting it out of the way, but I'm convinced a gun should be set up. If a gun doesn't shoot free recoil, it's broken. It sucks. If you got to steer it, then you have to steer it consistently, and that's not good. So I'm at the point now where the last 20 groups I've shot were, completely free recoil. I catch them this far away. So I'm reaching up with this hand, and I'm grabbing the bottom, and I'm pinching. I got into this thing where I would pinch. Get a little light in here on the subject because there is still enough. You can see now my thumb, well, I don't know if it made any difference, but bottom line is I come in from the bottom side like this and I stick my finger up into the trigger. I don't know if you can see that, and I pinch this forevermore hard so that when it recoils it pops back out of there and it lets my thumb go through without, I'm getting away from this finger. Now I'm getting a sore spot on my thumb. But I'm trying to let the thing free recoil without steering it because up here wasn't working, no matter how, and wrapping into it. On the big guns, you can't wrap up on it. The screen door works because I can shoot it at a low enough velocity that I can wrap up and dead meat it, boom, 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 and I can shoot little bitty groups. So that proves the concept of the gun. It's bolted together in a way that allows it to shoot where I need it. This one, I'm almost convinced something is loose on, but let's look at targets. I got notes and targets up the walls here. Get over where hopefully you can see. These aren't going to make a lot of sense, but I've got, as I said, I keep assiduous. This is my notes from today. Shot by shot by shot by shot by shot. Actually, yesterday and today. I started out with, again, coming into this, this is Lake City belt rounds, factory rounds. I fired them right off the belt just to get my aiming point was somewhere here. And I took a guess at it, and these are pretty nasty. And as I said, all I had done was bolt this thing together, but I'm trying to lick the horizontal rock that it had. So for Lake City, I didn't expect anything. After they were fired, I stuck a primer in them, and I very carefully shot a, well, let's just find out here. .2572, .2565, .2544, 28 feet per second of velocity in this one, of extreme spread in this one right here. But I'm okay with the group for starters. I went, okay, well that's going to work. So now once I had fired these, for some reason this brass didn't fit the die the way I liked, and I was playing with a neck tension die, a Lee collet die. Couldn't get it to work very well, so I popped the primer out and I moved over to here and tried it with no neck tension. Exact same load, and I still got decent ES, 2548, 2556, 2533. So I got 23 feet per second of ES here. What I'm doing is I'm coming up into the working, and this is why I'm sharing this, because I'm trying to give you an idea how how do I put this? Working up loads is a thing, and I do a lot of shortcutting and a lot of things. And for this kind of stuff here, I keep notes as I go. I'm going to bump up a couple of grains. I'm going to bump down a couple of grains. In this case, the difference between this and this is identical, except this one has no neck tension. And I decided I didn't like working with this Lake City brass, so I moved to Hornady. Cleaned, changed to Hornady brass. My first Hornady brass fit in there nicely. And it was, I have a jam fit. I set my chamber up for a jam fit, so it fire forms pretty good. Number 4 is 9 feet per second extreme spread. 18, now I started ramping up just a little bit here. I'm at 2576, 2558. I'm coming around and this was essentially the factory tension of the brass, and these two, to me, are pretty similar. And I ran these through a die, and I went to here, same thing. Here I'm playing with seating depth, but the ES is licked. I got 18, I got 10, I got 9. As I'm coming down to here, I'm at 9. I moved over to here. I picked the load up, and this is when I started getting, from here on out, I started getting these stupid 2-in-1 groups. Now, really this is just a group until I figure out what it is. It's just the group. Okay, I read this wrong. This says, got the ES licked, and I dropped down to 2544, 2512, 2524. I got 32 feet per second of ES here. I dropped down from 240 to 236. Remember, I'm doing gross movements at this point. That's all I'm doing. I did some neck tension, then I dropped down because I wasn't happy with what I did here. So I figured I'd try to find the bottom side of the extreme spread. I dropped down, did not like it, went back up, decided to go up to 240. I got 12 feet per second. I got 14 feet per second. And I'm bumping up, bumping up, bumping up. And right here, those words say too hot. I don't know if you can see it. I'm up at over 2,600, but I got a huge group. But again, I'm doing a bunch. I'm just examining parameters here. I haven't yet sat down to try anything twice in a row. These are the only two I did twice in a row. And that one's got loose neck tension, that one's got, or tight neck tension. That one's got loose neck tension. Because I did manage to get the top 2/3 of the neck tightened up with the Lee collet die, and I ran pretty good neck tension here, because earlier work had told me that the ES goes down with this powder It likes a little tension. That may not make sense to anybody, and I don't care if it does. I'm just sharing my ideas. As I come down around here, I'm getting a little hotter, so I decided to back off. Stop. Okay, too hot. I came down here and this is a group shot from right to left. Or these groups are shot from right to left. And I'm not going to go through and say all the things that I did here. This one I left a towel on. This I dropped down. And these are 2-in-1s. It's easy to see that one. This one's harder to see. It's easy to see that one. It's a big oval. That's just 3 shots. And then I got over here, and as I wrapped up the nut, I was convinced my brake was loose because I went and put a 1/4 turn on the screws on my brake. I think these things beat the system up harder than I could even imagine. Based on that one brake coming apart, I just went outside and I took my wrench because I had that brake slammed down. And I went out to the front ones and they turned down a strong 1/4 turn. They got tighter as they came back, but the brake is screwed down. And again, not your problem. But we're seeing, but here's the key. This is what makes me happy. Vertical, wide, frowny face groups are gone. Gone. So I started getting this vertical. Right here is where I switched to, okay, rolled up coat. See that? I switched to a rolled up coat. I figured over here I'm kind of cheating with bags. I'm going to get away from it. I'm going to make it back into a hunting city. Rolled up coat, shooting over the rolled up coat, shooting over the rolled up coat, shooting. Here is where I convinced myself. I didn't know, yeah, it was hot, but I was thinking it was slamming my little sandbag down. So I stuck that farley up. Now, is that cheating? I don't know. Still shooting over a rolled up coat. I'm just experimenting. I'm having fun, all right? So these are all shot off of that little mini Farley in the back. Now when it gets slapped, I know the back of that thing's slapping hard because that little mini Farley is, number one, got a reverse coaxial action, and number two, it won't hold more than about 8-10 pounds of weight. No, it'll probably hold 15. I've tightened up right now. But it pops. It slams the handle right down. Every time. So you got to pick it back up. So far I haven't managed to shoot, whether it's rolled up coat or whether it's my bags. I've never got 2 shots in a row without resetting the bags. The bags just go away every time. But I've got 2 pages of these notes here. Nothing really. Muzzle brake vibrations broke. I think that thing loosened up. I'm just going through shot by shot here. But basically, I'm going to say I win. I'm going to say this vindicates my whole outlook here. Those original groups that I shot with this thing were this wide all the way across. We're now fighting vertical. Vertical I can deal with. Vertical is easy. Vertical I can tune out. Vertical I can tighten up and harden up the bags. I love vertical. So we got the gun to shoot vertical. To me,